Hello and welcome back to AEF TV in association with Engerati. I'm joined now by George Njenga from the GE Power and Water. George, firstly, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to be here. You've probably got a busy schedule. It's great that you've made the time to talk with us. And just because of time efficiency, I'll dive straight into it. We're talking a little bit off air about distributed power. It's something that we've been covering quite a lot. And what is your sort of view about distributed power in the African context, and what are you seeing happening on the ground there?
Thank you. First, thank you for having me here. I think distributed power is always a subject close to my heart, so I'm delighted to actually discuss about this. So what do I see, distributed power on the African continent? The first thing I see is that I see it as the preeminent solution to solving most of the power needs. And this is why. One is, for a long time we've kind of looked at the centralized power, grid power as a solution. And to be honest, we still have 70% of the Africans in Sub-Sahara Africa not having access to power. So we know what we have had so far has not worked. All right? And it has not worked not for lack of trying, but if you think about the vast distances between where we generate power to where our communities live, mainly in the rural areas in most of Africa, it's going to be another 40, 50 years to get transmission lines into those locations because they cost a lot of money and our governments have other priorities. Okay, they have competing priorities, healthcare, transportation, etc.
So when you're talking about distributed power, sorry to interrupt, but what we're really talking about is local microgrids. Am I getting that?
No,
sense
exactly.
right?
So
Yeah.
this is power. I think we should have said with definition. So this is power that is generated near or at the point of use. So it's power to captive plants, mining locations, microgrids serving communities outside the grid, combined heat and power applications. So it's really power where the people are. It's also power where the fuel is. All right. So if you think about, a landfill site near, let's say, a densely populated area, and you have a power generated from this landfill, biogas or landfill gas, and we have technologies for this kind of application, and you have that immediate community enjoying power supply from that source. That is distributed generation. If you have a food processing plant, out there, having, bio waste that again can convert to biogas, again, that's another solution, not just for that industrial application, but for the surrounding community. So this is really appropriate power. Mini hydros, I look at them as distributed generation. They are where the rivers are and where the communities are. So when you think about the landscape of Africa, the sense of having distributed power as an immediate solution, I think, is quite clear. The other part of it is how do you finance projects? So the biggest challenge about financing is, number one, the magnitude of money involved doing a big gigawatt project somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and then so you have to link the transmission side with the generation side, wrap it up together so that somebody say, this is a bankable project. I can see the evacuation, I can see the power purchase agreement and so on. When you talk about financing distributed generation solution, the stakeholders are far less. So the due diligence process is far less, and the risk associated with the project far, far less. So
on that side of things, when asking a question to some of the financing people from that constituency who've been sat in the chair where you are,
yeah.
And saying, okay, well, what is the issue with you getting involved in those projects? There are two things that come out. One is saying, look, the scale is much smaller, but the work for us is exactly the same, so we'd much rather concentrate on that. So how do you break that? I mean, how do you make this attractive, or we need to go to different types of financiers for these sort of?
Yeah, no, I think part of what you said is part of the solution. So when you think about distributed power, there's a whole range of from the smallest half a megawatt to 200 megawatts of distributed power. And so the top end of that is very similar to what you do in in grid power is most of the places we have in Africa, right? So I think about some of the deals we've been involved in, helping cement plants, steel mills, etc., acquire distributed power a solution for themselves.
So these are industrial companies, cement.
Yeah, as an example.
High energy
Yeah,
use.
exactly. High energy use.
They're coming to you guys and say, look, how can we de-risk our energy supply, or take control of that ourselves because we can't rely on the grid? Is that the conversation that's happening?
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's one of the conversations that happens. Okay, so you have this type of clients. When they come to you, the offtake is clear, the financing is very clear because hey, some of them do it on balance sheet, okay? Some of them do it still on project finance, and you get lenders, and it becomes like an IPP into a captive plant. So the risk profile of these deals is far, far less, okay? Now, on the bottom end, when you're talking about, a megawatt, half a megawatt to a microgrid.
Or community energy.
Yeah. So you have to link this with a collection mechanism and ring fencing that, and there are enough takers for that level, right? So the big developers and the people who finance big developers will say what you said before, that hey, the same work to do a 10 megawatt deal is the same for us. But we're not going to that community for distributed generation. I think you open up the space for people who can lend into this kind of project. You open up the space for more financing products. By talking about typical project finance deals, the bigger the merrier, for those type of financial, and there's a space for them. So when you think about the whole continuum of distributed energy, you have a space for all type of financing products and players. And I think that's the beauty of it, and that's why it becomes an easier solution. Sometimes you just go for straightforward equipment finance, all right? And not all the project development stuff that precedes it, and big arduous PPAs. That happens on the top end, and I agree, if it's top end 200 megawatt deal, it's sweeter than a 5 megawatt deal. But then you're talking to different financing.
And you
houses.
probably have also different collection mechanisms, and the community finance comes into play. And
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And look, the problem of power is so acute that you cannot go to the race with one horse. So you need to solve at the bottom of the pyramid, where most of our people are, and you also need to solve at the top end, where the industries, right, and the bigger isolated grids are. And you have to have different products and players.
So what's the role of technology and available technology to, accelerate, the power delivery? Because there seems to be an underlying consensus that in order to fast track power, you said it earlier on, we cannot rely on the same old methodology of building, big, massive infrastructure from the rural nature. So, can I ask you a little bit more about where what are the new technologies that are coming into play? How can those be blended? Hybrid power is another theme. Where do you see that?
So I think that's an interesting question. I think about the technology that especially applies in distributed generation. You talk about solar PV, okay? You talk about biogas, right? You talk as a fuel. You talk about natural gas. You talk about liquid fuels. You talk about ethanol. The range is endless. I think to as many fuels exist, there will be a distributed power solution and the technology to go with it. Now, I'll give you an example of a project, a very exciting project we're involved in a town called Naivasha in Kenya. And Naivasha is one of the, I think, biggest exporters of flowers and horticulture products, especially to Europe, around Lake Naivasha in Kenya. And so we're using waste from the agro or the horticulture processing. The waste material goes into a digester. We produce biogas, clean it up, and it's running a GE Jenbacher gas engine. And then coupled with that, another phase 2 of this project is a solar farm. And the deal here is, hey, you can produce biogas all through, but you cannot produce the sun all through because it becomes dark at night. So during the day, you use as much solar as you can, and at night you switch to the
gas.
Njenga gas engine, and there you are with a baseload solution. So when you think about a hybrid and all the issues around how does it integrate with the grid, is there variable power coming through, intermittent. So this solution actually takes that issue away.
So do you think that, and this is something that, we've looked at for some time, and we've argued for some time, that actually the solution and the way to look at microgrids is not just as a one generation source solution. It's not solar, it's not wind, it's actually the more sources you can attach to this microgrid, and you can have the technology to balance it all out, the better it is, the more stable it'll be, the more sustainable it'll be, in fact.
Yeah, this is a case of the more the merrier,
yes.
Right? So I'll give you another instance of things we are trying to do, because look, as I said, we have to find solutions throughout the value chain. So GE and USA Foundation for Africa, which is part of Power Africa, instruments.
Yes.
We put a fund, $2 million 2 years ago, and the idea was to reach out to local entrepreneurs in the power and energy space for them to come up with project ideas that would tap into this fund to take their projects to the next level. Either leverage this for more funding or go into implementing. And what we've seen is a very novel biogas from waste, from people's settlement, solar, going into food preservation. And these guys have coupled this with collection mechanisms, so it becomes a source of revenue, a source of employment at the bottom of the pyramid.
So you're creating a closed loop.
Absolutely.
Process.
And GE is not doing this because we sell stuff, we don't. But we're saying you can't solve the problem alone. We make big gas turbines, and we make big reciprocating engines
so
on
you
gas
come
and
to
diesel.
the party with technical and technology expertise.
Technology expertise, advisory, and funding, right? So that the solution, as we tackle the top end and the mid end, we have co-creation with our customers of the solutions we all seek. A place with more lighting in Africa is good for all of us. It's good for our business. It's good for security. It's good for the local community. Improve the quality of life, and we make progress. And I think that's what Africa needs now. So you will not come in with a single solution and succeed, right? And you will not come in with a few stakeholders and succeed. You just need. We say in Africa it takes a village to raise a child. I think the power space requires a village to actually make things happen.
On that note, I feel like we should end it, because it's a good place to end it, and we've come to the end of our time here. But I have one final question. It seems to me, from what you're saying and the narrative that you're saying, is that actually the initiative around getting power to Africa, it feels to me is becoming much more democratized, and by that I mean it's not just the governments who are doing it. Yeah. It feels to me, and this is my feeling, that the patience has come to an end waiting for that solution. It feels like industry, entrepreneurs and communities are saying, look, we're not prepared to wait on the wall. They're stepping up to the plate and they're solving their own problems.
And I think that's how it should have been in the beginning. The role of government: set the rules and keep out of the way, and let people with the right expertise, the right motivations to play the game, okay? I think culturally, especially in Africa, we kind of waited for government to do stuff. And you saw this demonstration, people with placards waiting for the government to solve every problem, almost including supervising your own kids to do homework. That narrative must go away. We need to find solutions. We need to partner with government, with financing houses, with technology companies like GE, with young, innovative, students in universities, research centers, to find solutions. And that's the only way we'll solve the problem that, bedevil us. Not just power. If you look at the entire infrastructure space, you look at education, healthcare, it just requires a multi-stakeholders approach if we are going to get anywhere with solving the issue.
And people taking charge of their own destiny. They're
Absolutely.
not waiting for someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't agree with you more.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. And it's been another interview at AEF TV in association with Engerati. We hope you enjoyed it, and there are many more on our website as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.